But you do think it's a crisis now?
Brett, it is a challenge that we have been addressing vigorously with all of the tools and resources that we have been provided.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas still refusing to say that the situation at the southern border is a crisis, despite more than 300,000 encounters last month. Now, the White House is still blaming the border chaos on House Republicans. Watch this.
House Republicans decided to vote on a bill that would cut 2,000 Border Patrol agents at the border. That's what they did. That's what they did. And they continue to obstruct and get in the way of of the president wanting to move forward with a supplemental that includes border security. They're getting in the way of it.
This comes a day after more than 60 Republican lawmakers traveled to the Texas border, Eagle Pass, to get another firsthand look at the ongoing crisis. Joining me now is one of those lawmakers, Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Meuser. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl.
So give us your thoughts. What did you see?
Oh, well, we saw a catastrophe. We saw a man-made catastrophe, a Biden administration-made catastrophe. We just saw people coming across, of course. We saw Customs and Border Patrol that were beside themselves with agony, frankly. They're nothing more than processors as opposed to border patrol. So what we have is an unmitigated disaster created by a complete reversal of the Trump administration policies. And it has led to a situation that is 14, 15, 16 times worse than it was when they found it. When they came into office, there were less than 1,000 a day coming across, about 800. Today, we are in the neighborhood of 10,000 a day. And every CBP person you speak with, whether they're Democrat or Republican, obviously they don't define themselves that way, will tell you the same thing. We need border security. We need a barrier. We need remain in Mexico. And that's one of the biggest frustrations here, Cheryl. The solutions are right there. The Biden administration won't implement them.
Yeah, Todd Pyro's on set with me. He's got a question for you. Todd, jump into this.
Congressman, great to see you as always. I view everything, especially this year, through the lens of the elections. And right now, Republicans are winning this issue. You see Democrat cities basically fighting amongst themselves as to the immigration issue. So you have a good hand to play. Are you confident that you can maintain that momentum going into the election, keeping the pressure, one, on the White House, making sure Democrats continue to have this fight amongst themselves? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, are you confident you're not going to somehow lose the upper hand on this issue going into November?
Well, you know what? We'd rather correct the issue, right? Or at least minimize the horror that's taking place. And it can be done. Now, it won't happen overnight. But if they actually, meaning the Biden administration, implement the Remain in Mexico, that alone would reduce the flow of illegals by 70 to 80%. We had the Texas Border Patrol telling us that. We had the U.S. Border Patrol telling us that. Just remain in Mexico. So as opposed to coming from Venezuela, and we saw dozens, if not hundreds, coming from Venezuela, that the first country of entry is where they sought asylum. Our asylum laws, as you know, our eligibility requirements are an absolutely laughable, if it wasn't so sad, joke. So we'd like to see some corrections here. But this administration, everything they put up is for show. The money that they're asking is for processing and resettlement. And the lies that they state, how it's awful. It's absolutely shameless. The contriving of the information. Just all you have got to do is go there and talk to every single CBP member, and they will tell you the same thing, that the policy is the problem, not the money.
Well, you know, there's an op-ed on FoxNews.com, and it talks about this exact issue, and it says Biden's excuse for releasing and paroling millions instead of detaining or sending them back to their home countries is to pretend they're all asylum seekers. But to qualify for that, you got to prove you're fleeing persecution at home. Asylum does not just mean, well, I come from a poor country and I need a job. If that was the case, and this is what the op-ed points out, then that's the visas. Who cares about visas anymore? Let everybody from every country around the world just come to the U.S. and work just because you want a job, which isn't going to work at all. But I think the bigger question here is when you and your colleagues come back to Washington, you get back to work here, are you willing to shut down the government over the border issue?
Well, you know what? It's more than a border issue. It's a national security issue. You well know the number of people on the terrorist watch list that are coming across. So that's an unbelievable concern. The number of gotaways is going up all the time. Even with our very weak eligibility requirements for asylum, you have people avoiding officials. So therefore, the only reason they're doing that, rather than having any sort of status and being on the adjudication list, is because they're criminals, or perhaps they're on the terrorist list. So yeah, I got to tell you something, Cheryl. We're going to treat this as seriously as it should be regarding the supplemental that they're seeking. We need to secure our borders first. And yes, related to the budget itself, I do think that no funding at all is going to go towards any sort of resettlement or processing of illegals, because the situation must be corrected in some way. So yes, we're at the point that we will take every measure necessary, including shutting down the part of the government. And that's what would happen, by the way, on January 17th. It would be a partial shutdown. If the Biden administration, Speaker Johnson's been pretty clear, and we all are, if we don't deal with this issue now and at least minimize it and have some teeth to any policy, we'll have a partial shutdown, and there'll be no supplemental, as far as the Republican majority is concerned.
And there is, I'll tell you this, there's going to be political risk with that, but certainly you and several of your colleagues are saying that's where you're willing to go. I do want to switch gears here, because on the Democrat side, the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, a Democrat, he's suing these bus companies from Texas who've been bringing the migrants up to New York, which of course is a sanctuary city. He won $700 million from these companies. And here's how he announced the lawsuit. I want you to watch this.
Governor Abbott's continuing use of migrants as political pawns is not only chaotic and inhumane, but makes clear he puts politics over people. Today's lawsuit should serve as a warning to all those who break the law in this way.
Governor Abbott calls the lawsuit baseless, and it says that deserves to be sanctioned, Congressman.
What Governor Abbott and his Texas Border Patrol are doing, we should all be thankful for. They're the only ones that are trying to minimize the situation and truly be on the humanitarian side of things by deterring the illegals from coming across, which is unbelievably dangerous. Hundreds are dying. The media, of course, won't print any of that. And the drugs coming across are at the highest levels. And the Texas Border Patrol is doing everything it can to deter people from going to Texas, and Arizona and California should be doing the same thing. And these sanctuary cities, you're a sanctuary city. Either not be a sanctuary city or act like one. And how is it okay for people to come from 20 different nations and resettle and attempt to get into Texas, and 16% or 17% of the hundreds of thousands that come into Texas are being transported elsewhere, and some, yes, to New York? What is Texas supposed to bear all the burden, and we're all supposed to keep our eyes closed? It's like the joke. How many in the media does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer's none. Biden tells them it's fixed, and they all applaud in the dark. That's what's going on here.
Congressman, immigration is going to be on the ballot this year. It's an election year, and it's going to be there. Congressman Dan Meuser, thank you for being here.
Okay, pleasure. Thank you.